All right, y'all. Well, welcome to our 5th episode of the Soda Citizen podcast. Yep, we're still calling it Soda Citizen. It's sticking. It's getting there, right?
On.
A little bit. So I want to welcome everybody to the podcast. We've got some great guests that Mary Lane's going to introduce.
Yeah. So we're really excited to have Robert Hughes, president of Hughes Development Corporation and the master developer for the Bull Street project. Thanks so much for being with us, as well as John Sherrer. Did I say that right?
No.
No, dang.
Sherrer.
Sherrer.
Like we're sharing something. I'm going to share some history with you. Sherrer.
Now I will always remember Sherrer.
It's all good.
There we go.
That's how I learned dessert, right? 2 S's.
That's right. You always want more.
Yeah.
And a desert only has one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Teacher.
Yeah. See, I need something to remember that. So
already
John,
learned
who
something on
shares
this
with us
podcast.
about history.
There we
I got
go.
it.
It's all good.
All right. And so he, of course, is with us with the cultural resources with Historic Columbia. And he's back for his second time? Third time. So he's a regular on the show. Thanks for coming back.
Hey, I'm glad to
Absolutely.
be here. Thank you.
So I'm severely excited. Severely.
Severely?
Severely excited.
Everybody, hold
severely
on.
excited.
Strap in.
That Robert, you've joined us and that John's here as well. Because we're talking about the Bull Street District this episode, and it is just a really cool spot. And there's a lot of like numbers I can throw out about how big it is and like the biggest land mass of a metropolitan city, all that stuff, which I can't remember. So I'm not going to try, John. But at the end of the day, it is very near and dear to our hearts because it's a big part of our city and we love the city. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. So I figure I'd kick it off with John.
Okay.
Like, what has this property been? Like the big pieces, not like every year,
gracious.
but like what it started as, what was it used for?
Well, it started out relatively small by our current standards. It was really situated just north of the original city limits. So for those who do not know, Columbia is an 18th century city founded in 1786. And Elmwood Avenue today was called Upper Street. And where Calhoun Street is, that was Lumber Street. And that's where the Insane Asylum, as it was called then, was erected. And in 1827, it received its first patient. And it grew from that to the northeast, essentially kind of gobbling up farmland as needed. And it became, for all intents and purposes, a city within a city. And I think that's what makes it such an incredible opportunity for Columbia is, how do you kind of recreate and rethink a city? Well, the opportunity to redevelop a city by having a city within a city is pretty amazing from a historian's perspective. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so like Civil War era, I know they used it. I think the North occupied it for a little bit too, and some other things along the way.
Well, depends on how you say occupied. There were a lot of northern
aggression,
northern soldiers who were imprisoned there, albeit briefly, from December of 1864 until February 17th of 1865. So Camp Asylum was located behind what is part of the Babcock Building today. So that's the large building for those who are driving into Columbia on Elmwood Avenue. That's the one that has the large cupola on it. Didn't quite look that way in 1865, but it was still very much a local landmark.
Yeah, and then I guess they've just developed it to more modern times up until the 1990s. Is that when it kind of shuttered?
It parts of it closed in the 1990s. It was kind of drawn down all the way up until maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
December of 2015 was when the last patient was on campus.
Yeah. The building campaign, so to speak, was in kind of fits and starts from really the 1820s all the way up through probably the 1960s. That's when you saw your last significant buildings being erected there.
Very cool. Yeah. And then fast forward to today, right?
Right.
Give a little bit of brief history on how Hughes Development came to take on the project.
So our company for the last, 15, 20 years has really focused on kind of the hairy, hard project that really others might overlook or might not want to take on.
Right.
And for us, those are the projects where we can have the biggest impact. So our mission as a company is to do the project that others might not want to do, where we can have an outsized impact based on our experiences, and we can really improve the land at which we're working on. And so something we say in our office all the time is, we want to create more value than we capture in every real estate deal that we do. And when we looked at Bull Street, the first time anyone in our company stepped foot on Bull Street was December of 2008.
Okay.
I'll tell you how long we have been looking and working on this project. And the state marketed it for 2 years in 55 countries, is what we always heard. 2 years, 55 countries, and they had one bidder. They had bidders for pieces, but they had one company that said, we'll take this whole thing on. And that was our company. And at the time I was living in New York City, I did not even know much of Bull Street other than what you heard as a South Carolina resident growing up on what that place is.
Yeah.
Right. So I did not know really that much about it at the time. And for us, in looking at a project where we can come in, we can be very patient with how we approach it, and we can really be meticulous in sort of reshaping it. And the opportunity here in a market like Columbia that we have always loved, being the state capital, being the most stable economy in our state, having tons of potential, we got really excited about it. So we first stepped foot on December of 2008, went under contract in 2010. Took us about 2 years to get the project zoned, worked closely with Historic Columbia. A lot of other organizations did design charrettes, really tried to understand what the vision was. I don't think we're not necessarily local, but I don't see us as outsiders either. Right. This is our state. This is our state capital. We're based in Greenville, 90 minutes up the road, but Columbia is Columbia is my backyard. I feel like I live here now. Yeah. And for us, we want to be sure that the vision matched what the community wanted, and there's always conversations there, and there's give and takes, and everybody compromises certain things. But for us, it was setting a vision, setting a course, and really getting excited about taking what John described as a city within a city that had effectively been abandoned and left and left to rot, and bring it back in sort of in a new modern way that will have a whole new life for the next 200, 300 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Robert, tell us a little bit about what's happening at Bull Street like right now, and then kind of what the vision is for it.
Absolutely. So right now there are probably 8 or 9 construction crews on the site in different places.
Over there.
And it's been that way pretty consistent for the last several years. Under construction right now, REI, which is one of the biggest names to announce they're coming to Bull Street.
Very excited about that one.
They open early May. Okay. So that building is being finished up as we speak. The roads and parking lots and things around it are being finished right now, if the rain will stop.
Right.
We're doing some selective demolition and other site prep for a few new developments. The Babcock Building, which John mentioned, hopefully is under construction in the next few months. Okay. That was transferred. It's going to be one of the most spectacular renovations in our state, maybe in the region. I mean, it will be a showcase and a showpiece for this city and this region forever.
And just for our listeners, what's going in the Babcock Building?
So the Babcock Building, which is about 230,000 square feet, has, I think, about 1,400 windows, is getting a full historic renovation. So every one of those 1,400 windows.
Historic Columbia is going to be really upset about those windows. Right? That's always here. Like, we got historic windows.
It's a character-defining feature that they are absolutely doing right.
And I believe, I don't have the number exactly right, but every window will be fully restored to its original condition.
Nice.
They're bringing a whole window working shop onto the site to repair those windows. And it will be converted into 208 apartment units, for-rent apartments with great outdoor space, really interesting units. A lot of apartment buildings you go into today, you've got a bunch of one bedrooms and a bunch of two bedrooms. They all kind of look the same. They might have different countertops, but they're not that different. My understanding is they have 208 different units.
Oh, wow.
You cannot get 2 of the same unit because the building was designed in such a unique way that there's no way to create, 4 floors of the exact same unit on every floor. Every floor is different.
Wow.
Every unit's different. It's going to be really neat.
Can't wait to see it.
Yeah. So funny story about y'all's vision, and this is kind of a little off script for us, but like I remember a couple of years ago, I met with yourself and your father and Chandler and some other people, and we met at the Babcock Building. Like, hey, we have an idea. And so just a little brief history. Mary Lane and I helped to start a church called Downtown Church, it's a Presbyterian church, and we were a mobile church for a while, and we're not. I am ordained. Just want to throw that out there. We'll talk about that later.
We'll let anybody in.
But I remember we were looking at the chapel on the campus, and that really wasn't going to fit what we're looking for. And y'all were like, "Hey, come look at this building." And it was the energy facility is what produced energy for the entire city within a city. And they rolled up this garage door, and I swear nobody's been in there since the 70s, although it was just working. And they're like, hey, imagine this. And that's what's turned into Central Energy. So like the Hughes Development has the vision. They get these random one-off buildings like, hey, what if?
And a Preservation Award recipient, by the way.
It was, right. Yeah.
The second on the campus, or maybe even the third at this point.
Yeah. And it was great. I mean, we had Garvin Design help do it all and all that stuff, but it was started with the vision of the Hughes Development going, hey, what if? And then we were dumb enough to follow, and it turns into it's awesome. It's our church. Yeah.
It is one of the coolest spaces I've ever been in. Yeah. And I'm obviously biased, but I can't find anything like it anywhere. And the church did an amazing job converting that space. And the events have been, I mean, I think their weddings are booked for
Yeah.
the whole
Yes.
year. I mean, it's amazing how much is happening in that space.
Yeah, that's a whole other podcast. But yeah, no, it is a church. We're there 24/7, right? And then we do use that space for bringing people to the church. But that aside, so Robert, the other part I want to talk about is a little bit about haters, right? Like it's a 20-year project, I believe. We're year 6, right? So we're getting there. And you know, people are hating on stuff. Anytime they can hate on something that's a city project, right?
Sure.
They're upset, you know.
Especially when it's not happening as fast as they think it should be happening.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. But I mean, even listening to the lead up, how long it's taken y'all from the time you looked at it to even kind of going under contract and starting. Do you feel like you're on track for what everything's moving along or ahead of schedule? Or
I mean, for us, we said 20 years to start because no city in South Carolina can absorb that density that quickly. When you've got 180 acres and you're talking about building 3.3 million commercial square feet and 3,500 residential units. If we were to build all that tomorrow, 95% of it would be empty. So you've got to respond to the market. And a lot of the planning up front was to put in flexibility.
Yeah.
What uses, where, and when. Yeah. 20 years, you got to be ready to survive an economic recession, maybe 2.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to respond to a lot of different things. And so for us, we put our first shovel in the ground in January of 2015, so 5 years and 2 months ago. And if you look at all that has been built, the largest private office building in the city in the last 12 years, First Base building built at Bull Street. You look at all the historic structures that have been renovated, brought back to life with SoCo's second location, SCD&R, townhomes, already people living back there. In our vision, we are ahead of schedule. We are doing the things that it takes to bring people in, but we're not, and this was a rub we've always had, is we're not willing to sacrifice quality for time.
Right.
We're not going to let the timeline dictate what we do or outside pressure. So you get one shot at this. A site of this size, of this level of importance, we get one chance. Where we put that road better be there for the next 200 years. Yeah. So we get one chance to put that in. So we've taken a lot of time to think through, if you go out to Bull Street and you look at the detail, that street light that's there was not just a street light that we plucked off of somewhere else. We spent probably 3 days studying which street lights to put in and why. They all have gigabit fiber brought to them and power brought to them, and they have tracks on them to hang banners and cameras and Wi-Fi hotspots. We tried to think through all of the things that it takes for this place to be a vibrant community, not just in the next 5 years, but for the next 50, 100, 200 years. And that takes a lot of time. So we understand it, but we are doing exactly what we said we would do. And we've tried really hard to fit that vision of bringing the district and the people into the district that Columbia's asked for.
Sure.
So what would you say, sorry, real quick, I call them the chicken littles, like the sky is falling just because bone-in closed.
Sure.
Right.
The first thing I would say, and I hope, I don't know exactly when this podcast publishes, but I would be surprised if it's today. That won't be the case, but hopefully very soon we announce a replacement.
Okay.
We've had a lot of interest in that building. We announced Iron Hill Brewery and Restaurant today.
Right.
We're building a new building for them along Bull Street near the Starbucks and REI. The demand is there.
Right.
And Capgemini has 500 workers in the building next door. All the state office workers. Restaurants will do very well. The food trucks that come out to Bull Street do phenomenally well. I get the fear. I understand it. It's easy to feel, but for us, it's going to be not even a blip.
So just tell them to take a deep breath and be patient.
We're not. We are not concerned.
Okay.
And it probably impacts us more than anybody.
Okay.
We're not concerned.
Okay. Great.
Well, like in commercial real estate, and I never know the answer to this, like either density brings restaurants or restaurants brings density. And I think sometimes it just happens, right? I mean, I don't think there's a way that you can figure it out. Sometimes restaurants come and go, and sometimes housing comes and goes. So yeah.
They say rooftops, the old line was rooftops brings retail. And I think that's true. But if you look at where Bull Street is, just because we have 9 rooftops on this campus today, and the senior living facility is about to open. That'll bring 120 more quote rooftops, but look at the neighborhoods around Bull Street.
There's a lot of rooftops there.
Yeah.
Yes. And how phenomenal they're doing it. What great, the Cottontown neighborhood right across Bull is, what you're seeing happening there is amazing.
Yeah.
And all the residential neighborhoods in the downtown in general, not even just around Bull Street. So the rooftops are already there. Bull Street there's 43,000 cars a day that pass right in front of Bull Street's front door. So in terms of retail surviving at Bull Street, there's not really a concern on our side whatsoever.
Yeah, that's awesome.
One of the things I would add too is, you're talking about all the infrastructure and all the detailed work that you put into the road networks and the lighting and so forth. But it's also manipulating the land in a way that makes good sense environmentally. And so daylighting formerly culverted creeks and making the lake and whatnot, that's smart growth. And that creates destinations for people who may not necessarily even live in Bull Street District, but are around. And that's going to bring greater energy. And then, it's really been fulfilling from my perspective as a native of Columbia, and literally being kind of having Bull Street in my backyard, because historic Columbia is literally just, half a block away. It's been fun to watch. Yeah. It's been fun to watch. And it's been gratifying to be able to help. Yeah.
So John, would you say that you are proud of the historical preservation and steps that they have taken in developing the Bull Street District?
Yeah, I would say that, with maybe one exception, there really wasn't anything.
What is that? No, I'm just kidding. Yes.
Windows.
No. This is the vagaries of the English language. With one exception, there was not one building that had to be saved. So Hughes has been very proactive, working with Historic Columbia and others to preserve more buildings than they had to. So, I mean, that's a step in the right direction. That's the right attitude to go in.
Right.
Are there buildings that will have to be demolished? Yeah, there will be. But there's also smart growth, and there's use of and integrating facades, for instance, with Williams Building and so forth, into some of the new construction. And so, historic preservation isn't just about preserving the building, it's also preserving the memory and the stories and being respectful of what was there before. And I think that is being achieved. And it can be achieved in not just maintaining structures that are old and revitalized, but also granting public access. And we've partnered in that as well with special public tours of the site, which have been amazing.
And I think that there's a misconception. The term real estate developer has a lot of meanings to a lot of people and a lot of connotations associated with it. And sometimes I think that the conception can be that, hey, the developer's going to come in, he's going to tear every building down, he's going to rip every tree out. And he's going to just rob the dirt of all of its wonderful natural history. Right. And for us, we would not have been interested in Bull Street if it were a farm. If a Bull Street was just a flat piece of dirt that we had to just put some roads on and build some buildings on, it would not have been of any interest to our company. The authenticity that the buildings bring and that the trees bring are what makes the site so special. It's what attracts people like REI. It's what attracts local businesses as well to want to be there, to be part of something bigger. And so having clear-cutting that site and taking all the buildings down was never something we considered. And I think I appreciate John saying it. I wasn't even around for part of this negotiation, but originally I think it was 5 buildings were agreed would be preserved. And that was part of our agreement with the city of Columbia, with input from Historic Columbia and other organizations. And we said, we'll try our best to save as many more as makes sense in the plan, but we don't want to be bound to do that, but it is important to us. And we're now up to 10. So we've now doubled that number. Central Energy, where Downtown Churches is one of those additional 5, but we just closed in January on the 10th building that will be saved. So it is important to us, and it's what makes people fall in love with Bull Street. Already when you come onto Bull Street, if this was a farm and you went out there, it wouldn't feel great. No. It already feels great because of the trees and the buildings. We just have to cultivate and curate it so that it's a great mix to get that vision of density and new urbanism and lots of jobs and lots of people mixed in with the history. That's the balance we've been working on.
And I think a good example of that is, like you said earlier, daylighting that creek. There was an underground creek, or a creek that was put underground. I think it was 2 89-inch culverts. Y'all daylighted it. Now it's a pond. There's a 20-acre park. There's a dog park out there. There's some grilling sheds. What do you call this? Like there's
picnic shelters.
Yeah, there you go. That sounds better than grilling sheds.
There's a lot of birds and waterfowl out there now. It's cool.
I mean, the fact that there were 1,000 linear feet of the Smith Branch Creek completely overgrown and was a dumping site, and then 2,000 linear feet of Smith Branch and 2 pipes underground. We have completely restored the first 1,000 feet, daylighted the second 2,000 feet. I put in walking trails, dog park. That is going to be, I think, one of the big draws to the district. It'll officially, we will say, phase 1 of that park is open later this spring. And I hope that it's something that not just the folks that live in the district, but the folks that work right across the street, live over in Cottontown and Earlwood, it should be a destination. We hope it is a park that everyone in Columbia feels pride and ownership in and comes out and enjoys.
A weird statement, but meeting with Bob about we're at Central Energy. I think he was in the dreaming phase. He's like, hey, those steel pipes that are going off the campus, like, I want to make the longest like swing set and have artists come paint it. And I was like, man, they're still up. Like, are they going to end up doing something like that? Or
it's all about cost, Brad.
those windows, John. You have to do the windows.
That's right.
Anyone listening to the podcast has an idea. We have drawn where it goes. We have talked about how to do it. It's just a lot more expensive than you'd think. But the old trellis system that carried the steam from Central Energy, there's about a half mile of this overhead pipe.
Right.
And we've thought of ways to try, in trellis, we've thought of ways to try to get that and reuse it in the park as public art, maybe even as functional public art, but really tells the story of the history. Provides an amenity, something to come out and see. So we're studying a lot of things like
It could
that.
be a really big piggy bank for future development.
Everybody just drops in.
Exactly.
We'll get it going.
Did you enjoy your time? Yes.
Right. Yes. So Robert, while we are, dispelling myths and calming people down, I think one of the other rumors floating around out there is about the Fireflies and whether they're going to get swept up in the minor league shenanigans. And I just didn't know, because I think a lot of people are like, well, if the Fireflies leave, that's the big part of the development. And then what? So any two cents on that?
When I first saw that article, when I first read it, I thought there's no way this could impact us, right? And I sent it off and I started asking questions. And the short answer is there's no way it will impact us. But the reason that they're even talking about it is some of the older facilities where player development's really hurt because the facilities are old. That is the best ballpark in minor league baseball.
Okay.
It won the award this year for Ballpark of the Decade. For the 2010s for minor league ballpark of the decade. It is a phenomenal facility. It's not anything anyone should be worried about. That place is amazing and will continue to be home to the Fireflies.
Okay.
If there's a change, I don't know about it, but it will not. I don't think there's a chance on earth that there's not a minor league baseball team there.
Okay.
Fun fact: that's a city park, so it's actually open. You can walk around it. You can. I don't think you can go on the field, but you can eat your lunch there. Like you can use the tables. You can run steps. I'm not running steps. John,
Let's go run steps, Brad.
I was wondering where you were.
Yeah. Make fun of his windows. He comes out swinging. But yeah, I didn't realize that. I was doing some research, right? And I was like, it's wide open unless they're having an event or a ball game.
It's one of the best things about the park. And the team owner had a great point. He said the city invested a ton of money into this ballpark. It belongs to the citizens. So come out and enjoy it. It's a third of a mile around the concourse. Come out, jog 6 laps. You've run 2 miles, head home, get your workout in, run the stairs. Bring your family. It's Easter Sunday. Your family's in town visiting. Take them out and show off your ballpark.
He said 6 laps. Like that's just normal.
No, he said run the stairs. Well, what's really interesting, when people were hearing that there's going to be a ballpark at Bull Street, and they're like, "Oh, it's unprecedented." I was like, "No, it's precedented. There was a ballpark there. It's a great panoramic view of."
Was it the same spot?
Very close.
Really?
Very close. Yeah. There's this wonderful panoramic image that was drawn about 1915. And I think the original is actually at South Carolina Library. It may be with the Department of Health. I'm not sure. But there's a ballpark and it shows people out there playing.
How about
and
that?
So, it was, it's a natural.
Yeah. Yeah. Why not? So switching gears a little bit, talk about housing. I know there's some townhomes that have been built and sold. I think they're building some new ones. I really haven't seen a lot about what the overall theme is with any kind of residential. Is it high-rise kind of housing, single family? What's the thoughts there?
Sure. So going back to that idea of flexibility, right? So we wanted as much flexibility as possible in the development, not knowing what the market might demand. In 2007, when there were some design charrettes happening at Bull Street, I think someone drew like 1,800 condos on Bull Street. Well, condos didn't survive about another year in any market, right? Not to mention Columbia. So we have a lot of flexibility out there. Right now, there's Town Park at Bull Street, which is a 28-unit townhome complex. The first 5 built and sold, second 4 under construction now. And there would ultimately be 28 in that little 1-acre block behind the Babcock Building up against Calhoun Street. Really great way to live. I actually live in a townhome in Greenville, and I love townhouse living. I'm a big believer. So those are great opportunities for ownership. We'll have a lot of multifamily between the Babcock Building and new construction project. We have a senior living project that just opened called Merrill Gardens,
which is phenomenal. Like that place is not your normal.
It's
old
incredibly nice, right. And the vision there, which is really neat, is if a grandparent or parent or grandparent moves in there, and the kids or grandkids are in the neighborhood or are still living in Columbia, grandma better get a visit when you take her grandson to the baseball game.
Oh, right,
on
yeah.
Saturday.
Right.
So
Don't
grandma,
post that on social media or grandma's going to know you're
Grandma's
there.
out in the suburbs behind a fence, behind a gate somewhere. You know,
Right.
grandma might not get a visit, or you might not know.
You can walk across the street.
Right.
When you're right across the street,
She's
you
got her
better go visit.
binoculars. She's like, I see you.
Exactly. So that's part of their story is being in the urban environment. But ultimately, Brad, I think we'll probably have some single family detached. We're zoned for it. The vision at Bull Street's been to be denser than that, to try to get more use and more developed land and more developed buildings on the property. So we may not, but I think we'll have some maybe small homes, single family detached, a lot more townhome, probably some condo. Condos are back. Condos are a great way to live as well. So probably some condos ultimately as well. But we're zoned for 3,558 units. So that's a lot of people, a lot of units. And I don't know that we'll get to that number, but by the time it's all said and done, I think you'll see it well over 2,000, if not 3,000.
Jeez. Do you have to do anything with like bringing a fire station in, or you're so close to Laurel Street and everything like that? That services.
I believe that services everything there. Yes, we've thought a lot about fire protection, especially with the old buildings and the new buildings as we've been through construction. But no, there's been no talk of that.
Yeah, perfect. How about shopping? I mean, I know we've got some shops that have opened and some that are thinking about. A lot of them right now are on the Bull Street Road, but there's a whole like area designed for shopping district, right? Is that kind of like we said earlier? We're waiting for maybe housing and retail to fill in, or how's that work?
No, it's been interesting. And there was a lot of conversation early with another development partner who is working on a big retail center, right? 400,000 square feet of retail in one development.
Jeez.
Big.
Yeah.
So, and then, there was retail Mageddon, right? Everyone said that there's not going to be any more brick and mortar. Everyone's going to get everything off the internet. Well, I think those were two extremes that neither of which would come true. We've taken the approach, and I think you've seen that brick and mortar retail is not going anywhere.
Right.
It's how you interact with brick and mortar retail. What is available in the store? You're not going to buy a kayak that you might buy at REI on the internet. You want to go see it, feel it, touch it. And so retailers like that, the experiential retailers are still growing. And what we like about Bull Street and what we see as the opportunity, one of the many opportunities, is its central location and the ability to attract retail. Columbia, and I still don't understand this, is the largest city in this country that doesn't have an Apple store.
I was about to say, hey, what do we need to do to get an Apple store down there?
And Columbia should have an Apple store anywhere. I'd love for it to be at Bull Street. I'd love for it to be at Five Points. I'd love for it to be at the mall. I'd love for it to be anywhere. But there are retailers. That's a symptom of a sign of all of the retailers that are not in this market that should be. And what Bull Street, we think, brings is the opportunity for that retailer to be in the central part of the market. Not necessarily out by the mall, not necessarily out at Forest Acres, but in the heart of downtown Columbia. And that's what REI told us. They said, we looked at the mall, we looked at other places. We want to capture the entire market and be in the center of downtown. And that's really what Bull Street is. I mean, Bull Street's the intersection of 26 and 77 in downtown. It's an urban destination already. It just had nothing to bring the general public to it. We're adding that, and we've had great success. I mean, the retailers aren't growing that quickly right now. They're all being very selective in what they're doing. But the retail interest in this market is strong. And the more Columbia grows, the better Columbia does. The more tenants like Apple will have to take notice and have to locate here.
So Apple, if you're listening, we've got a great opportunity for you at Bull Street.
If we could actually keep Pottery Barn and Restoration Hardware out for a while, I'm working on a house right now.
I was going to say no.
I know. The funny part is in my pocketbook in line, right? I mean, I can't even walk into the outlet in Nashville.
Some windows.
You would like that place, wouldn't you? So kind of to round us out a little bit, we've asked John this question about 3 times now, so we'll just leave him to Robert. But at this point, where do you see Columbia? Not just Bull Street. I mean, obviously, we hope that's a huge anchor. It's not going to compete with the Main Street District and the 5 Points and the Vista. But like, where do you see Columbia as a developer, or maybe just personally, in the next 5 years?
Well, to me, that question, and I've thought about that before. Columbia is the most stable market in this state. I've started saying, and I've kind of stolen this from elsewhere, but that's what all great real estate developers do. That Columbia
you borrow it.
Borrow, that's right. Thank you. But Columbia is really a four-legged stool economy, if you think about it. From the university to the state government to the fort to the insurance industry, Columbia is a very, very stable market. So for us, looking at this market, we've always said there's immense opportunity here. for this city to grow and start retaining the talent that it produces. Columbia is also the largest exporter of talent with all the students that move out after they finish school. Right. And so for us, that was part of the vision of Bull Street is how can Bull Street be part of the solution that retains the talent? And so you look at companies like Capgemini that said, we chose Columbia because Bull Street. We believe Bull Street will give us a recruiting edge. We'll have 500 workers, the majority of whom will be under the age of 30, making a great salary, hopefully graduates of a local university staying here. So if Columbia can continue to do that, and then you think about the growth of the river and the outdoor opportunities, the greenway systems, you think of all of the things Columbia is doing from a livability standpoint, and it can retain that talent, I think there's huge upside opportunity. There are headwinds. I mean, Columbia's got its set of challenges that every city does, but Columbia has so much to offer. That's the other thing I've learned, having spent so much time here as an outsider, someone living only 90 minutes away. The perception versus the reality is very different. There's so much more happening here than I ever had a clue. And the more that can get celebrated, the more the successes here can be propped up and talked about, and the more there's this sense of pride in this city. I think the sky's the limit. I think Columbia has huge upside potential and growth opportunities ahead of it, and we're excited to play a small part in it.
Yeah, no, I think you're helping. I think you're playing a big part in it.
I think our slogan should be Columbia. It's not that bad. It's not that bad.
I've always said
you can get anywhere from here.
I love the slogan. I love the slogan conversation because when we first started this project, I said, "Why is?" And maybe I shouldn't say.
No,
all right, but go for it.
Why is Columbia calling itself famously hot? Why are we celebrating something that
we didn't get to vote?
Right. But I didn't know that the slogan originally was famously hot, surprisingly cool.
No, they dropped that off.
And they dropped surprisingly cool. But I said I wanted Bull Street slogan to be surprisingly cool. I thought it was a fun way to play it. And then we talked about this in the office. We said, well, you know, Dallas is hotter than Columbia 9 months out of the year. So is Austin. Maybe we should say cooler than Austin.
There you go.
There you go. Cooler than Dallas.
I like it.
The heat's the heat. We got to deal with it.
That's right.
Let's find ways to celebrate it. It's not that bad.
No, it's not that
while
bad.
you got a microphone, is there anything else you want to kind of dispel or anything you want to say about Bull Street or successes we may not know about? Or, I mean, kind of why you have the floor. I mean, I know the medical universities got land slated. They're not, I think they got some more steps to go through before they can start building.
They've done some demolition and some site clearing. They've started to start some work. I think you'll see a lot more into this year, beginning of next year, hopefully. There's a lot happening out there. And I think the thing that we've started calling it the denominator effect. If you took everything that had happened at Bull Street and you spread it over, say, 40 acres, not 180, you would be, I think everyone would be blown away by the quality, by the different uses, by all the people, all the activity. When you spread it out over 180, it's pretty easy to look in one direction and go, well, there's not much happening out here. But that's because of the size. That's the denominator effect, as we've called it. But the truth is, Bull Street has so much happening. And even, I mean, if you haven't been in a month, come back and see it. If you haven't, I mean, there's always something changing. And so the more we can break down this perception that there's not much happening there and there's not much happening inside those four boundaries that historically have been big boundaries, right? I mean, you were not allowed in. I was detained going through there when we had the property under contract because I didn't have the right piece of paper with me. I mean, truly, it was no one was. So trying to kind of break down that mental block of, oh, I'm not allowed in there. That's not for me. Bull Street is for everyone. If Bull Street doesn't attract everyone, Bull Street's not going to be successful.
Absolutely.
And I was just going to say, I think people really need to get out and drive around this entire district because you know, I'm driving down Hardin Street. I look over and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all of the work that's going on there. And then, you know, you go down toward Bull Street and you take a left and you're like, well, you know, I've been watching that for quite a while. And then go into the interior, walk around. I mean, it is brilliant. And you're right. Everywhere you turn, there is something going on right now. And it's exciting.
And when will the brewery, I don't know if we mentioned that actually on the podcast. We mentioned it before we were talking, but like the brewery's opening up.
Iron Hill Brewery will be next year. But I think to finish John's point, you know, we didn't do anything to Bull Street, the street itself, when we started this project. Everything started internally. And that was very intentional. We said, the ballpark will go in the middle and we'll radiate out from the center and grow slowly out from the middle. But this year, for REI, Freed Street will connect at Bull. So there'll be a new entrance to the property from Bull Street itself. This year, we'll add a new stoplight along Bull Street at a newly named street, which will be announced Sunday. It'll be the first street in the city of Columbia named after a woman.
I was Mary Lane Boulevard.
That was happy birthday.
Sorry.
They can't get the double name
I
right.
couldn't help myself.
Actually, this is a very fun fact. It'll be the first street. It's the Women of History Month, right? Or
March.
Women's History
Yep.
Month. It'll be announced on Sunday by the mayor and Rachel Hodges will announce the first ever street named after a woman in the city. Technically, there's another Lady Street was named after Martha Washington, not just generic lady, but not truly named after. So that will be a new stoplight along Bull Street at a new entrance that'll help with a Starbucks. And then ultimately, we believe Bull and Elmwood will be renovated as part of the county infrastructure program. So theoretically, in the next 12 months, Bull Street, which forever, if you've driven down Bull, you didn't see any change.
Great brick wall.
Yep.
In the next 12 months, you'll see hopefully 3 brand new entrances, all to bring people in off of Bull Street, come in and enjoy and see what's happening inside. So I think that will help change the perception of exactly what is going on inside when you can see all of it from Bull Street.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I drive through there obviously every Sunday because I'm a good Christian going man. So I go every Sunday, sometimes twice, depends. I told you I'm ordained, right?
And then you run the stairs.
Yeah, they're on the stairs.
Twice. Once for church, once for the stairs.
But all that being said, like I see it and it's looking great. I'm very thankful for y'all doing what you do, taking some heat for it, even though it's unwarranted and it's just part of the gig, but doing it with grace too. Like y'all's marketing, everything's on point. Flock and Rally's done a really good job for y'all as well. But I'm glad to actually talk with you. And
this is fun. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I stole your line, Marilyn.
It's okay. It happens every time.
Go ahead.
Anyway, thanks so much for joining us, guys. We really appreciated having you on the show today. We also want to thank our listeners and be sure to subscribe and like and share so that we can continue to grow our audience.
The Soda Citizen.
The Soda Citizen Podcast.
Great name.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to our Soda Citizen podcast. We hope that you found the content relevant and exciting to listen to. We'll be dropping these as frequently as we can. And if you have any ideas that you'd like to see featured here, feel free to drop us a link below.
And thanks to Andrew Miles for being the greatest producer we have in our company. So we hope you found this relevant. Keep an eye out or an ear out because we're going to be dropping these pretty frequently. So see you soon.